Katherine, you've had an interesting evening, to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
What started out as a typical night with you and your books became a less typical, but still
Tragedy.
not unheard of. Sure, night with friends, because that's always tragic for Katherine.
Bruh.
That wasn't an Embrace reference or anything, but in any case, yes, tragedy of a kind did indeed strike, because Carver's question and your oh so eager investigation led to a very, very disconcerting experience that scared you to your fucking core. And you
Mm-hmm.
ran to the first place you thought of that was safe, and then you ran in screaming. And somewhere in the middle of that screaming and dismissals and whatever the tumult became, you suddenly felt nothing at all. And then you find yourself, when somehow that ends, sitting on a dark stone floor with cool black stone rough at your back. Your hands are over your head, manacled to the same wall by heavy iron. You don't seem harmed, nothing is missing. You're not in pain. But as for your location, aside from the dark stone around you, and perhaps something like a door to your left, and some sort of very strange glowing aperture to your right, and other dark crevices through which you're not entirely sure what lies, there's really nothing else except for, I would imagine, a most unexpected face. A young redhead wearing a deep orange brown satin shirt and a similarly shaded hat is standing leaning against the wall opposite you with her arms crossed and her right ankle likewise over her left. Just kind of tilting her head to the left and then to the right as she flicks her fingertips back and forth.
And so, does Catherine remember, like, her being at the ring?
Up to you. You were really fucking scared, and the first thing you did was run up to Riddler screaming.
Okay.
So you might have somehow saw her, but
There's also equally as likely that she did not. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah. Um. So, Catherine, whenever she first wakes up, she keeps her eyes closed and like her ears peeled, for lack of better words, just listening for anything around her, any the drip drip of a water source, anything like that, just because it's basic survival instincts seeming to kick in when she first moves her arms and they don't move. Um, and then her eyes open and she's looking around, and in her own mind, she's fucking terrified. Visions of Ramses popping in her head left and right. I'm sure he was the type of man where any sort of disobedience would be met with isolation. And so she's probably a frequent flyer of this sort of scenario.
Hmm.
And so finally she seems to notice Deirdre for the first time, and she sort of freezes, and then she just says, what is going on?"
And the girl's head lifts and she turns to look at you. Oh, she's awake. Sleeping Beauty awake at last. Hmm. Perfect. She casually straightens, moves up from the wall, and comes to stand roughly about in the middle of the room across from you. Hmm. Well, I suppose the answer to that question depends on the answers to a few of my own. What exactly do you recall?
Yeah, she is staring at her, cons- just almost considering her for a moment, and she's just going to say, "I remember the ring and then nothing."
Hmm. Well, that's about how it stacks up, so fair enough. Gotta ask though, why there? Why, of all of the places in this town you could have run to, did you pick there?
And Catherine frowns, almost like she's not really certain herself. And she just sort of like, it's this cross between shaking her head and sorta shrugging her shoulders because, she's kind of stuck. And she just says, I'm not a, f- I'm not a fighter. And so it was instinct to try and find someone that was. And I knew that place was there.
Hmm. I see. And her face falls a little bit. She clasps both of her hands in front of her, just keeps nodding thoughtfully, until lifts her head up again. It's almost enough to make me feel sorry for you. Almost.
Why did you want me to have gone to the ring?
Oh. The magician never shares their secrets. You ought to know that. Or however that line goes. She shrugs.
I don't see much of a magician in front of me.
Hmm. Well, that's kind of the idea. She smiles ever so sweetly. Though, well, she taps her chin. I suppose I'll have to do a little bit of investigating on that front. She pouts. Ah, well. Nothing lasts anyway. So, let's get down to business, shall we? And she's actually going to sit down crisscrossed in front of you, right where she's standing, and lean forward with her face propped up on her hands, looking very attentive. What exactly do you recall about all of that running amok in your head that caused you to run in screaming, looking for that safe place?
And she tilts her head, looking at her, and she's just going to say, "Why would I tell you anything?"
I mean, you don't have to, strictly speaking, but I mean, we're gonna find out anyhow, and consider this a job interview of sorts. Goes more your way if you play along.
Insight.
Go for it.
And uh insight is
Empathy. Like, you're looking for,
empathy.
yeah, it's the same as the empathy roll. You're looking for, you're either trying to see if she's meaning what she says, or are you actually looking for, like, her motive?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because the
Uh
roll's the same either way. I want to know to clarify so I tell you the right thing.
oh, gotcha. Uh I don't know which one. I'm gonna roll it first, and then I'm just gonna roll it, and then we could.
Okay.
It gives me a moment to think that one through. But we are gonna willpower that because I think this is very important
Okay.
for
Auto
Catherine to know.
success or
Yes.
okay.
Go away, AVG. I do not need your antivirus right now. You know what? I'm gonna use that super dice. Fuck that.
Wait. Oh, you rolled already? It hasn't even come through on my side. Oh, there it is. I wasn't just scrolled down. Okay. Yep, you go for it.
Considering there are 9 fucking dice.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Thank you. That's
That is
better.
much better. Reroll that
So
10.
that's already 5. Da-da. So that's 6, 7 total, right? Because that one doesn't
Yeah.
count, so that's 5.
Right?
Willpower is 6, 7. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That is indeed. Holy shit. Okay. So, well, the first part of this that you might be like, what, really? I mean, this is an uncontested roll. She's actually being very plain here. Um, of all things. But she meant what she said. This is a job interview. Um, and the degree, well, I'll just fuck it. 7 successes, I'll give you both. Um, she is gauging your reactions and your willingness to cooperate and not be dodgy, and how hostile you are to her is going to have an influence on decisions later. And she did completely mean it when she said that you don't have to answer the question, but the information will be gathered either way. So it's pretty much a point blank choice between cooperating or not. As to why, um, how to put that? She, you're a roadblock that, not even roadblock, a problem that she's seeking to turn into an opportunity.
Yeah. And she's sort of frowning as she's looking at her, and she's just going to say, "Who is we?"
She's gonna lift her eyebrows and laugh. Hmm. Well, a few people, for starters, but I'm not giving you any names. Not just yet. However, I could perhaps eventually be convinced to give you not just names, but also faces.
She sighs and she just goes, I'm not going to apply for something if I don't know what I'm applying for.
She'll sigh real dramatically and say, "Fine, have it your way. Here's the deal. I'll level with you." And she throws her hands out in front of her, palms up very plainly, like, "This is how it is. You have three choices. Choice A, the boring one. I wipe your memory, send you on your way, let someone find you running amok in the middle of the streets like the crazy Malkavian everyone already thinks you are." Or, option B, we kill you. It's always a little bit of fun, but, eh, it has its cons. Option C, you convince me you might actually be worth a little bit of an investment, and that you have an interest that might in fact align with ours, in which case you don't die and you don't have to forget. You would leave here with a few assignments, of course, and then, there's the jumping through the hoops of, convincing us you actually meant everything you said and that you can be useful, those sorts of things. Oh, bonus for this one, you get to keep your Emery.
Yeah. She pauses and she just, yeah, she frowns and she says, "You're saying if I don't, you're taking him from me."
Hmm, well, more or less.
And she frowns and she's just going to say, "I'll play ball, but I want you to get me Ramsey's head on a platter."
Ooh, okay. Insisting on bargaining even when you have nothing or next to nothing to bargain with. I can appreciate that. Mm.
"I don't know. I seem to have the information you're wanting. I'd call that
Oh,
something."
sweetie, we've already established you don't really have anything that you can prevent us from finding. So she shakes her head. No, but like I said, I do appreciate your spirit. So tell me a little bit more about this, Ramses.
Toreador, pain in the ass, has a penchant for
Toreador or Ventru?
Toreador. Remember, we turned him into a Toreador.
You're right. I think I forgot about that part.
Yeah,
Okay, my
because
bad.
him choosing widows is just him being a dick.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Toreador has a penchant for widows that he makes widows. Let's just say I have a score to settle with him.
Hmm. Her eyes kind of narrow and she looks at you. I bet you do. All right. Say that I can arrange this Ramsey's head on a platter. Even better yet, let you be the one to put his head on a platter.
Yeah, she shakes her head.
Oh, right. And she just nods, like, of course, can't forget about that. Well, okay then. We arrange for his head on a platter in addition to you keeping your pet. That can be option C.
I ran in because I saw a prophecy about fire.
Hmm.
fire, brimstone, basically the end of life as we know it.
Whew. That does sound like a doozy. Why don't you start from the beginning?
She raises an eyebrow and she says, "You're gonna have to clarify that more because I don't think you want to know about my first husband."
She. She's
This is
gonna.
like, in all reality, she is deadpan. Like, I don't know how far back you want me to go here.
she's. She's gonna look at you and then start laughing when she realizes you're serious. And she's gonna say, again, leaning forward, I mean, the beginning of whatever it is that you saw that made you lose your shit.
Um, so actually, hold up, I have an idea. Hold up. Let me see if I can do this. Wrong person. So, uh, so yeah, she is gonna look at her and she's going to say, "I could show you, but I don't know if you're gonna like the effects just as I didn't."
Hmm. She
And I'm
stopped. Oh,
thinking
go ahead.
she could use Incubus Passion from the Dementation.
Mm. I don't remember what that one is. Let me look at it.
Vampire floods the victim's senses with vision, sound, sense, or feelings that aren't there. The effects are never good.
Wait. Oh.
I was just thinking like she could flood her with that vision.
Oh, okay. Alright. Go for it.
Okay, that's charisma, empathy. Uh, it has it. They have it from Anarch as difficulty of
Yeah.
victim's humanity score. But
It's.
should I just do diff 6?
Um. Do. Fuck. Um. Yeah. Let's roll with that for this one because stuff and things.
Diff 6, you mean?
Yes.
Okay. And I am going to use another willpower
Mm.
because I want this bitch to go cray cray. I want to scare the living bejesus out of this bitch.
Mm.
Catherine does it.
Yep. Yep.
Charisma. Yeah, that's that again.
This is very easily something Catherine. It just happens as a side effect because Catherine is herself so overwhelmed.
Yeah. Oh boy.
That's
7.
fucking awesome. Okay. All right. So preface this with it's probably not the effect you were hoping to get, but give me some narration here.
Um, she, yeah, she's staring directly at her, and she gives her this warning of you're not gonna like it. Um, oh wait, do I have this wrong? I just went. I might have had this wrong. That's weird.
Like what it does?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna. Yeah, you.
Shit. Why did I have that written down?
I don't know. So does this change your actions here?
I would have to because I can't do that.
Yeah, yeah, you're not gonna be able to scare the shit over. that
Yeah,
and
sad face.
maybe you're thinking of like the masquerade version of dot two of presence because it gives you that like face of the beast thing.
I don't know. That's weird. Because, like, Haunt the Soul, I have, like, vampires scrutinize the patterns of a person's soul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Haunt the Soul is flooding the victim's senses with vision, sound, sense, or feelings. Okay.
Okay.
That is. Uh, I just had it under the wrong one. That's so fucking weird.
Oh, okay. So, okay, give me a second to read that one.
Yeah, cannot control what the victim perceives, but may choose which sense is affected. Never
Okay.
mind.
Okay, so yeah, this is still all a
Still
no
doesn't
go.
work. I'm so sad.
Okay, so she still makes this offer if I can show you, but I don't know if you would like it.
Yeah, and she just sort of like, yeah, and she like sort of looks up, I guess, skyward, like in my head, because she can't. And I'll be honest, her
Mm-hmm.
hands are like above her, and she'll like point her fingers down at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like up here.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get in it, I'll show you.
Mm. She'll smirk at you and give a lackadaisical shrug. If you say so. She'll stand up and walk over to you and just put a hand on the top of your head. And then she seems to go still for a moment. And you are gonna get a super fucking disoriented feeling for a moment. And then you experience the entire goddamn vision all over again. Like it was happening the moment it first occurred. Ah,
And this time she can't run.
nope.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think she's gonna try and kick at her because in our reality, she probably fear frenzies again.
Mm.
And so she would like kick out at her, like just try to get away. She'd probably obfuscate on and off, even though she can't get out.
Mm-hmm.
Like terrified.
Yep. And you will somewhere in the hay of this, like you make impact with something. Like she was kind of standing at your side, but you hit something somewhere in that, and your arms are still yanking at the chains furiously, which clank and yank and for a moment almost maybe seem like maybe they'll come loose, but they never do. And
Sorry.
you
Sorry.
and then as you flicker in and out of um you know sight, you eventually come back to however long it takes, and it's a long ass time, just like it was before.
Hmm.
She's sitting in front of you now, leaning forward, watching, clearly enjoying the show, with her chin propped up on her hand again. Hmm. Appreciating your life choices right about now?
Yeah, I think she gives like a very soft, like almost a growlish sort of thing. And she just looks at her and she goes, I've never enjoyed life. I'm not going to start now.
Oh, poor Catherine, damn. um, that probably just makes fucking Deirdre smirk deepen. And she's gonna shrug and say, well, then I suppose it is what it is. Well, hopefully our little arrangement gives you an opportunity to change that, maybe. But I must say, I am quite satisfied with the answer you've given me. That was quite the experience.
Yeah. And She sort of stares at her for a moment, and there's just this weird cross between I'm so fucking done with you and also like can I no, it's mostly I'm just done with you. And she just sort of shakes her head and she says, "Has anyone ever told you you have no bedside manner?"
It's been mentioned a time or two. But seeing as I was never really all that interested in their comfort, I can't say I was really bothered by the accusations. In any case, question one down. Why do you think you were so scared?
And she pauses and sort of frowns and she's looking at her with like a shouldn't it be obvious sort of look, but she doesn't say anything out loud on in that retrospect. But then she's just going to sort of like shake her head and she'll say, "It was fire, but not natural." And it just it screamed doom and death.
She
And I
nods.
yeah, she just sort of like shrugs from there.
It's called balefire.
Can I roll a cult?
Yes, you may.
Cuz she got a cult.
Yes, you do.
uh
And difficulty on
Wits or
that.
intel?
It's intel. Fuck, I'm trying to remember which difficulty I gave the last person that rolled it on it. I think it was a 10.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, go with that.
Aw, that's
Aww.
rude. I
Yeah.
got one though. Let's just see. Nope.
Oh.
That one, man.
Boo. Okay. Um, she's
But yeah,
gonna. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like she'll probably see that flash of thinking, processing, buffer. Nope, got nothing.
Yeah. Well, she is going to nod at you understandingly. Yes, yes, it is not exactly something people tend to have heard about. It's quite hush hush and all that. But suffice to say, a balefire is every bit as doom and gloom as you make it sound. Unless, of course, it's wielded for some other more magnanimous purpose. But where's the fun in that? The point is, what if I told you you didn't have to be scared of it anymore?
She pauses and she's looking at you, and yeah, there's just it's honestly just pure curiosity because Catherine is a little curious little asshole. Uh, and yeah, she just seems to like just watch her for a long moment, and then she'll say, "Are you not scared of it?"
Do I look like I am?
Had to make sure. Other people did. Nope. Had to be sure. Other people make no sense to me.
She smiles, laughing a little bit again. On the contrary, I'm quite excited by it. But if you dig real deep, I think maybe there was something else about that whole ordeal that you found unsettling.
Is she trying to dig within like the children born of blight or whatever?
Um, she,
Like I'm trying to make sure I'm understanding what she's
yeah,
asking for.
she is saying that that can't have been the only thing that scared you.
Was there blood in the vision?
Fuck yeah, everything in
Oh
the
yeah,
pit
there
was
was.
blood.
Yep.
Also the creepy ass voice that was yelling and like talking to you from the pit. The Dark Mother herself, probably not the most, warm and fuzzy,
Yeah, yeah,
inspiring.
yeah. I feel like the blood is actually the one thing that would probably stand out the most to her though. So
Yeah.
she would she would wrinkle her nose and she'll just say, "A couple of years as a blood doll makes you a little wary of the substance."
Oh, yes, that little wrinkle. Well, you can see to that. Okay. Well, how about we try this line of thinking then? What do you think it actually meant besides, oh no, the end of the world? Let's be a little bit more specific, shall we?
What would Catherine think it means? Oh,
You can maybe
you're
make some
asking to be,
rolls on it.
yeah, bestial insight, maybe?
You could do bestial insight. You could do like an an intel. What's the thing I'm trying to think of here? Um, mm, I almost want to say investigation because it's like interpreting.
Let's do. I think I would rather do bestial insight personally.
Okay. Well, you're not limited.
Mostly,
You can do both if you like.
it's your true. I'm gonna do both. Fuck that. Yeah. Hell yeah. So wits BP and then wits invest.
Okay.
Yeah. What is the bestial insight diff? 7?
Yep. 7.
Oh.
Holy shit, biscuits. Oh, sweet mother of pearl, roll that again.
Oh god. Oh my god.
Ah, are you gonna do it? Are you gonna fucking do it? Come on, roll it up. Ah, that's 10 fucking successes. Oh my god.
Oh my
Okay,
god, Catherine.
that's
She got 10
amazing.
successes on 9 dice.
Well,
Wow. Just wow.
yeah.
Whoa. Okay, let me
Oh,
roll the other one real quick while I'm thinking about it, and then I'll let you think about that one.
yeah. I'm gonna have to now.
Uh, invest. Would that be diff 6 or 7?
That would be the normal diff 6.
Okay. No 10s, but I got 4.
Okay, I'm gonna start with the easy one. um,
We'll come back to that one.
um, so with 4 successes, as you are, you know, struck by this question and actually have a moment after having experienced this thing full force twice and having it fresh in your mind because you weren't subjected to some sort of who knows what that puts you out of your senses in between, it strikes you that you're not wrong in the oh so quick and simple conclusion that it's a prophecy of doom, but it's a very particular kind of prophecy of doom. It's not claiming that you yourself will die because you know this vision was not, even though you experienced it in first person because of how you saw it, it was a memory that belonged to Carver. So it was for him. And it wasn't that he would suffer, but that he would be wielding this doom upon others. And as you continue mulling that over, perhaps because Carver does not exactly strike you as the sort of madman to burn the world, ironically enough, or perhaps for some other reason because he's too young, too naive, too uninformed, whatever the case might be, you find yourself recognizing that there is an instinctual awareness, an understanding of this in your bones that you would never have known was there if you hadn't been made to look. You stood in front of a precipice into a chasm of death and destruction beyond what even the worst of kindred would typically be thought capable of. And the power that emanated forth from that, the hunger it felt and the need to be fed, is something that you, problems with blood or not, utterly comprehend. What's more, it was not a voice like anything on this plane. When it spoke to you, it was as if it was not speaking at you, but through you, as if the pit in which you stood in front of was a conduit for awakening something that you were already connected to. And it was beseeching you, commanding you to remember, to be, and to act. And that you, in terms of Carver, while he was scared, and you personally were scared because this message was not initially meant for you, there's something at the very base of your beast's recollection, a memory so far gone so as to be etched in your essence at the mere incomprehensible spiritual essence level that even you recognize something from before. And it can be communicated with. It is hunting. And Carver is meant to be one of its weapons. You could too.
And she's going to look at Deirdre, and her head tilts a little bit to the right as she stares at her, and she's just going to say, "You're connected to the voice in the chasm, the entity that that was calling."
Very Good. Now, does it begin to make sense? Why you might not always have to fear that fire?
If he is the one that makes it and uses it. And then she just shrugs, like, yeah, duh. Sort of like, well, it's sort of like a general giving a gun to a soldier and then the soldier being afraid of the gun.
Basically. But, just like with soldiers, they're trained to use different weapons. So it's more
Yeah,
like a soldier, in this case Carver, given a gun, being afraid of it, but other soldiers recognizing what it's for and knowing that when used by one of their number, it's not going to be aimed at them.
fair, yeah. And she's gonna sort of look at her and she'll say, I have to ask, does he have to do with anything? Well, does he have to do with the reason why we are unable to embrace within the city?
She smiles again. My dear, what do you think he hungers for?
Power? Kindred? Maybe a spicy pepperoni pizza? I don't fucking know.
What does Catherine say?
I don't know. And- yeah, she's looking at her and she goes, well, he's either hungering for power and control, or he's wanting to fix it so he can continue to feed on Kindred.
She smiles. We'll leave it at something like that for now.
I'm gonna guess the option 2.
She just smiles. So, she lifts her shoulders. You know which team I'm playing for. And that's the team for which you'll be asked to go to bat. If you're going to truly accept our good old option C.
And she sort of like tilts her head at her and she'll say, I'm going to accept. Though may I suggest maybe next time for the initiation, maybe not kidnapping.
She's gonna laugh
Maybe just
again.
asking.
Maybe next time, don't go waltzing into the heads of those whose truth you don't understand. At least not without backup.
To be fair, he asked for my help.
She nods. A thing which you have always been oh so eager to give, Catherine. Might I suggest it would be a good habit to divest yourself of? We're not in the business of helping here. There's a debt which is owed, and we are here to claim it.
Yeah, I'll be honest here. There's a layer of Catherine's expression that says, I would say yes, but I'd be lying. Because, like, it's not like she's going to be like, she's always
Right.
going to be Catherine.
Yeah.
She's not heartless, but she doesn't say anything. She just nods. And she'll say, where do we begin?
Well, I think first some introductions are in order. And she smiles and then looks to the two left and right back corners of the room behind her shoulders. And she says, I think she's earned the right to see your faces. What do you say? And then there's going to be a female with messy, two blonde hair and overly blue eyes, with skin that looks almost washed out, standing in a dark veined gray or black silken fabric that hangs around her almost like a sack and yet still somehow looks elegant. And then the from Catherine's perspective, it would be the left hand corner, appears a man in a gray suit with a black tie, kind of hunched over with his right arm gripping the underside of his left. And he's just eyeing you like he has seen something tasty, with his tongue between his teeth, but his fangs are not out. And he quips, I don't know. She seems a little soft for me, but I suppose she does have the right to her choosing, after all. The blonde woman nods. After all this time, having assumed I might never actually encounter Astrid's progeny, I must say I am pleased, of a sort, with the result.
Yeah. Uh, she looks at the blonde and the look in her eye is just, yeah, it's just strange is the best word for it. Just the idea of Astrid, she hardly thinks of her, but bringing up her name brings up a lot of emotions and the like. And she's actually going to look at the blonde and she'll say, if it makes it more interesting, I've felt her recently. 2 years ago. It was around 2 years ago that they woke up
Yes.
Marcon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Lucio nods. As did I. In fact, I felt her tonight. Of
How are
course.
you related to her?
And she's gonna look at you dead in the eye. Because, Catherine, she was my sister, as it were. We are of the same sire.
This is news to Catherine. Yep, yep, yep. And she just sort of slowly nods, like she's just taking this information in. And she's just going to say, I would shake your hand, but I seem to be a little preoccupied.
Oh, yes, well, I'm sure you understand it's a necessary precaution until the finalities of our contract are cemented.
She looks at you dubiously.
Yeah, and that came from the
And
guy, by the way. Just
yeah, yeah. Still, she looks at him dubiously. And she's just going to say, you know plenty about me already. Therefore, you know I'm not the attack type. And then she just sort of looks to Deirdre and she says, within reason. Because, like, she did kick her, but, like, it wasn't to
Mm-hmm.
attack her. It was just to get away.
Yeah, and he's gonna shrug and say, I know enough to know that kindred backed into a corner are never to be considered docile. And he's just like, ugh. He kind of like shudders, like, ugh, bad memories. And he says, in any case, of course, we know a lot about you because of Armand and Lucille over there. And of course, Armand is, and she's Lucille just shoots him a look that says, "Shut the fuck up." And he raises his hand like, "Fine," and he stops. She looks, Lucille, to Katherine, saying, "Armand is your grandsire."
Great. Fucking saw that one coming. Yeah, she looks at him and she just sort of shakes her head and she says, I've never been to a family reunion. I don't get, I don't recommend, but alas, here we are.
And the man, and he's going to say, Mordred, by the way, since no one was going to introduce me. And he, like, straightens his shirt like that was very uncouth of both of them. Before we start discussing family reunions, I feel that I should inform you that actually, as it happens, your first task after we finish up here, you're gonna go find my brother.
Your brother.
Goes by the name Amos. Been a bit underground for a while, as I understand it.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, she just frowns and I don't know if Catherine would know much, would she?
I don't
Like,
believe so. She wouldn't have any reason
yeah,
to. And I don't think
yeah, I'm just
anybody,
thinking,
the coterie didn't tell her about him, so.
exactly. I was trying to make sure, like, the coterie hadn't gone to her just be like, who the fuck is the sleeper? I didn't
No.
think they had, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Uh, but yeah, no. Yeah, she's just gonna frown and then she's gonna say, any idea where he is, or do I have to find that all for myself?
Oh, no, he is, in plain sight now, actually. Well, frankly, we've known where he was for a while. It was just a little too inconvenient to go digging him out. But, someone, and he's gonna look towards Lucille, wasn't paying attention, and the dog got loose, so we should probably go round him up. And I, do so owe him a hug or something. He shrugs.
Something.
Well, I suppose it all depends. He's been a little worse for wear. I'm not entirely sure he's all there, to be completely honest with you. I'm hoping so. We could make great progress. And, perhaps you and he can be a team. Wouldn't that be lovely? But as it happens, he is staying at a Camarilla safe house in town. So I don't actually recommend going to fetch him there. But now that he's a free man, he does go out and about at least to feed. And, our capacities being what they are, or he wouldn't say capacities, he would say talents being what they are, it's not out of the question for us to arrange a crossing of paths.
And I just grab and go, or
No.
want him here willingly?
And Deirdre's going to speak up again for the first time, still smiling, and say, "Oh, nothing so simple as that. On the contrary, you're not going to bring him anywhere at first." And she's going to look back over at Mordred like, "Don't go rushing things." And she's going to eye you. "You're going to make friends. Make nice. Figure out exactly how loyal he is to this Camarilla of his. And then, while I'm at it, you're going to have a few other things on your list, including the details about exactly how you reappear and all of that sort of thing. We need to make your circumstances plausible, after all, without anyone having a cause to doubt you."
Somewhere in the distance, Nico winces. Deirdre already been cut. Anyway. Yeah, she's just gonna slowly nod and she's gonna say, Well, actually, first, while Mr. Man was talking over there,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and he said something about like Amos not being all there.
Mm-hmm.
She's given him the biggest, just a Malkavian.
And
You're saying that.
and he doesn't seem to get it. He's completely like, oh well.
Okay. Yeah, no. Uh, she just she's just gonna nod. We are not gonna touch that with a 10-foot pole. Not today. Not tomorrow. Yeah. So she is going to once again just nodding. And she's gonna say, "What happened with the others within the ring?"
Oh, and Mordred is just gonna do like a kind of gesture with his arm, like, don't you worry about that. Lucille just
Should worry about that.
passively, passively looking at you like, what's it matter? Kind of response. And Deirdre, well, she just looks back at you and says, think of it as a little, taking a break. They won't remember anything that matters, and all of the other evidence ought to have been sufficiently damaged. If not, she shrugs. Oh well. Oh, but that reminds me, and she looks over at Lucille. What did you do with those other three? And dryly, Lucille responds, well, they're awaiting your instructions. Deirdre nods. Go bring them in. And Lucille just looks over at Mordred like, you heard her, you go fetch. And actually, she point blank says that. She says, go fetch. And Mordred's eyes narrow, and then he looks at her like he wants to take a bite out of her. But he does not do that. Deirdre gives no shits about their spat. He walks out of this particular little hole here, crouching, and then he comes back. You hear like scuffling and shuffling back down this like corridor, and bodies get thrown out through here that have stakes through their chests, and it's Otto, Reese, and Josiah.
Yeah. Catherine shudders, like visibly shudders, seeing them like that. And then she just, yeah, she very obviously looks away from them because, like, while they're not bloody, it's still not fun to look at.
Yeah. And then as you're watching them, Lucille is watching you, and she says, "Oh, come now. If you're going to if you're going to be working with us, you're going to need to be able to handle the sight of a few torpid kindred." And he steps back out, straightening his jacket again, and then moves to like set them all up so that they are like lined up against this wall. And then he turns back to Deirdre, who is at this point standing again, and he says, "So, are we gonna do this the classic way, or?" And she shakes her head. "No, it needs to be a little bit more foolproof than that. Give me a moment." And she steps between Reese and Otto back down this hall, and then returns after 15 minutes or so, coming back with a silver looking chalice. And it smells like a delicious kind of death.
Gross.
Almost like blood. You do find yourself hungry for it, especially given that you had, well, let's see, obfuscated on and off multiple times, went running around like a crazy person, and probably boosted attributes to like make yourself faster and all those sorts of things. Um, Even if you didn't actually spend any significant amount of blood, it's so overpowering and permeating, even from just that little chalice, that you find yourself wanting it. And she says, firstly, she's going to turn back to you. I think our guest of honor should be given the first drink. And she just looks towards the other two like, don't you agree? And they just both nod like, yeah, probably. She walks over and kneels down in front of you, putting it just like kind of in front of your face by your chin. But not like she's not like shoving it in your face. It's like at a height and a distance that is enough for you to see it before um anything is done with it. And she says, "This is how you sign your contract. Drink up."
Yeah. And I'll be honest, if she does hesitate, it's not on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not something that she would actively think about doing. But well, she is still hooked to the wall. So she's just going to open her mouth.
Yep, and she will rather gently and respectfully, in spite of your accusation of her having a bedside manner, lean forward and tip it back at the right angle for you to be able to drink of it. And it is not the same as drinking vitae, or vitae, whichever way you want to say it. But it is extremely rich, and with it does come the sensation of experience of something like life. But while it seems to nourish, it also seems to make you hungrier. You have flashes of the vision again, and you feel yourself growing as if bonded to the other two, like you're connected in some irrevocable way. And the actual experience of the liquid itself, it is almost like ashes if they were liquid but sweet, and yet something more like a gel, not unlike the ectoplasm that you sometimes ingest in lieu of blood due to Emery's assistance with your feeding. And as you finish swallowing it, you don't take that back. You hear, more like feel it in your bones, that voice from the pit. And it's like it's taking in a breath and looking at you. And then it utters your name, Katherine.
Yeah. Catherine, she's had her eyes closed basically since, well, she closed her eyes whenever she was drinking. Partially so she wouldn't look at the cup, and partially because, I don't know, it's weird to like tilt your head back and drink out of something that someone is like feeding you. It's a very awkward situation. But so when this voice speaks to her, she doesn't like freak out or freeze. She just sort of pauses And then she's gonna look to the other two crazy people in the room. Well, crazy isn't Malkavian. Deirdre is also crazy, but different. But yeah, no. She's gonna look to the other two, and she's just gonna say, "Is this what Astrid felt?" Like, there's this sharing your mind with someone else. Basically, there's someone in my head, and I don't like it.
Hmm. And Lucille
Um,
said, "Oh, go ahead."
I was gonna say not that she doesn't like it, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. And it's not like he's exactly occupying your mind. It's more like you know that there's a connection to him, whatever this thing is now, and like it sees you. It's more like um what's the word? Uh mm, it's like you've been blood bonded, but the thing you've been blood bonded to isn't a fucking vampire, so it doesn't feel the same.
Blood bonded adjacent.
Well, something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Um and Lucille would say in response to that, and she's just gonna shrug. Actually, she's not gonna say anything. Pretty directly, appearing to not give any fucks about what Astrid felt.
Well, that's two people on the fuck after train at least.
Yeah, she does not seem to have been that much of a fan of hers.
Same, motherfucker, same.
And then Astrid is going to,
Astrid?
or sorry, shit. Deirdre's gonna look at you and give you a moment and say, "Empowering, isn't it?"
And she's gonna nod, and yeah, it's just this moment where, like, you can tell that she's considering everything. She's hyper analyzing everything, and she's gonna say, "Do you ever get used to it?"
She's just gonna smile back at you without answering the question.
Cool, that's a no. Okay.
And then she's going to say, standing up, she's gonna look over to Mordred. Unchain her. And he moves over to do so.
She would stand up pretty quickly. Like, not really defensively, just like standing up, because I'll be honest, she probably doesn't like having been sitting on the floor for that long anyway.
Mm-hmm. And as you right yourself, get a moment to adjust to being upright again, she's going to wait, and then she begins explaining. Now that you have tasted of our draught, you'll be able to recognize anyone else who has likewise done so. You'll find it has a great many uses, can be quite versatile if wielded properly and administered with the right know-how. You'll also find that your participation in this little ritual will not be so easily gleaned from your mind as other details might be. And should you seek to break your deal, the deal, she didn't pause there, I did. Well, suffice to say, you will be encouraged to reconsider.
More time. Well, no, we're not gonna. She's just gonna nod. And she'll say, "Noted." Now, Is the next step just going and making a new friend, or
Hmm.
is there something more?
Well, why don't we have you start here? And she's gonna gesture to those three. You can, of course, use Mordred's assistance. He might be a bit more adept at this particular skill than you are. But they need to be. Their memory has already been adjusted. Have no fear of that. However, they need to be told where to go and what to do, and then to forget what they were told to do. Essentially, they need to return to their havens, and all they need to remember is that they went to the ring, they had some fun. That one, and she thumbs her hand over at Reese, fought that one, and that was the end of it. No one running in with screams about fire and demons. Nothing like that.
And she'll nod. And so basically dominate.
Mm-hmm.
Forgetful mind. I do have that. I have 3
Yes,
dots.
yes, you
How about
do.
that? And so, yeah, she's gonna approach Reese.
And as you do, Mordred steps up next to you. His arms are still crossed, but as it looks like you're about to say or do something, he's gonna say, best, and he'll reach his hand out, like offering it to you. Team up before we get too far with this.
And will nod, sort of looking towards him.
Does she take his hand?
Oh, yes. Sorry.
Okay. And he nods too in agreement and says, eventually you keep everything up. It won't always require the entirely tactile approach, but you're new to this, so I'll make an allowance. And he's actually not being deriding there. It's encouragement, funny enough. And you can feel it the second he touches your hand. You stand stronger, straighter, like your potency is higher than it is. You feel deeper, like you have more to draw from.
Interesting. And she sort of like, yeah, she pauses a little, not really meaning to, but it is still a pause,
Mm-hmm.
as she sort of like looks down at her own hand where they've joined hands actually, and just slowly nods, and then her eyes glance at Reese almost in a way that says, basically, am I ready now? Like,
And
we good?
he nods, saying, would you like to do the honors or shall I? And he's pointing at the stake.
She'll gesture for him.
He nods gentlemanly enough and proceeds to reach down, at first seeming very, slow and respectful about it. Then, as soon as his hand is grasped around the stake, he just yanks it out and flings it behind him like he's throwing out trash.
I'm sure that's how he's going to treat their bodies in a little bit as well. Don't worry about it.
Oh, well, possibly. Um,
There's no possibly.
and when there's a sudden shock and Reese is going to straighten up and, like, be alert. And you'll see the hole in his chest starting to close. And then he sort of locks eyes on both of you and starts to say the word what. To which Mordred just holds up his hand like, don't bother. And Reese stops.
Yeah, Catherine's gonna like kneel down in front of him and she's going to say, "You do not remember any of this? You went home after you were at the ring."
He nods. I went home.
You beat Josiah.
I beat Josiah.
Oh, she's gonna have fun with this one.
And he actually's gonna repeat that a second time. I beat Josiah. And he sounds happy about that one.
And then she'll look to how do you say his name? The grandsire.
Okay?
Her grandsire. What how do you say his name?
His name is Armand, but he's not here.
Oh, okay. I thought this one was her grandsire.
No, that's Mordred. And
Oh,
yeah.
shit. Okay, yeah, that was just me being a dingus. Mordred. She's gonna look to him, looking like I guess the look is satisfied, making sure before we move on to the next.
He's gonna shrug like, yeah.
And then they're gonna move to Josiah.
He'll yank out the steak in the same fashion.
And much the same, before he really has time to say anything, Catherine's going to say, "You went home? You do not remember any of this. You went home after the ring. You lost the fight to Reese."
I went home after losing the fight. He blinks at you. There is visible dismay in his eyes. He doesn't shift outside of that.
Poor Josiah. Emotional damage. Yeah. And then we move to Otto and much the same. Yank.
Yep.
Pause. And for him, she'll say, "You went home after the ring. You had to help Josiah get home."
And he repeats, I went home after helping Josiah get home.
And she nods. And then looks to the others.
And then he's Mordred's just gonna nod and say, great. And then in a flash, Deirdre is going to like zip zop zoop, and in the blink of an eye, the stakes are right back in their fucking chests. And like their eyes are shut. Like they're not just paralyzed, like they're straight up out.
No.
Yep. And she's gonna like do the clappy, dusty hand motion when she is finished. And just say, wow, that ought to do it.
I feel like you enjoyed that more now than you did earlier. And I wasn't even there for the earlier one.
She's gonna smile. And it just kind of sits there for a second. And then she shrugs. And Lucille eyes Deirdre for a moment before just pressing her lips together. Mordred then jumps in with, anyway, Point to mention, probably. These chaps will answer to your beck and call now if you need them to, but I wouldn't abuse that little feature of the perks because, drawing attention and all that.
Catherine's got more power at her fingertips than she's ever had in her life.
He says, and until you get really practiced at this, you know, the extra juice, and he's gonna hold up his hand and give you like a wiggle like spirit fingers. Don't expect that to always work long distance. In fact, if you're not already sure you can do it, don't. Unless, you're back into a corner.
Use it only when necessary. Got it.
And Deirdre's nodding along with him. And then, of course, suffice to say, should you backtrack or fail in any of the agreed points, well, we'll have to revisit option B.
Option B was murder.
Yes.
Yeah, she just looks at Deirdre. The look on her face definitely says you're my least favorite.
Lucille is smiling at this, like she agrees with you, and maybe you're not so bad after all. Deirdre, on the other hand, she does smile harder, like she enjoys having egged you on, but Lucille is in fact appreciating your response here. And Mordred is just looking at the three of you, and he's just gonna say, "Fine, yeah, sure. I'll throw him back in the truck. Whatever. Yeah, I'll. Fuck you." And then he just goes and gathers the bodies back the way he came.
Yeah, to injure the injured, Catherine's going to say, "Be sure to lift with your knees. I hear that's important."
And he's gonna flip you the bird over his shoulder.
I'll be honest, that wasn't even her being mean about it. I feel like that was just her trying to be helpful.
He's still probably gonna flip you the bird.
Yeah, she looks concerned and a little sad.
Lucille's still laughing. And she's gonna look to Deirdre and say, "I think I've got it from here if you don't mind." Deirdre at that Deirdre pauses for a moment, looks at Lucille almost like she's gonna say something about it, and then she shrugs and says, "Alright. Be careful." And Lucille just seems to ignore her and then walks over to you. And she's going to give you a moment and just kind of stand there with her arms sort of crossed, waiting for Deirdre to head out and for, your baggage boy to get the bodies out of the way and all that.
Don't let him hear you say that. He might actually frenzy.
Yeah, he would not frenzy, but he would not have appreciated it, no.
Touche.
And when everything's gone, she's gonna turn back to you and say, "Alright then." And she takes her time before she can says anything after that, giving you a very deliberate once over. And she says, "Did you actually want this, or was it just the carrot and stick of losing your husband and yourself, even though you had the option A?"
And she considers how to respond to this for a moment. And then she's just going to say, I I am aware of my own shortcomings, and I am aware that most view me as nothing but something weak. And while, yes, I am not one to attack and brutalize others, I am stronger than most would give me credit for. And she shrugs. This felt like the best way to have my strength match what was on the inside, especially knowing that this doesn't directly pit me against someone who, well, no. Eh. Especially considering that the neonates who I hold dear are already involved in this. It felt like a natural progression.
When you say that you're stronger than most would give you credit for, she says, we always are. And then, as you continue and finish your explanation, she nods and she says, yeah. Oh, she wouldn't say yeah, she would say yes. That's a Maury habit. Those neonates of yours, I was surprised that they came to your shop. I suppose, with given their currently limited knowledge, moral conventions and whatnot being as they are, it's not so unreasonable. Looks like fate kind of. She wouldn't say kind of. Fate had something more in store for you than I had expected after all. But I should warn you, those neonates don't understand what they're in just yet, or who they are. If they ask you questions about this, you can encourage them to keep digging. They need to be pushed. But they have to do it themselves. You can't tell them anything you've learned.
Leave breadcrumbs, but don't spoil it.
Exactly. And as for Amos, what Mordred declined to mention is that he and his brother have a particular little defect. Their blood can't bond anybody. So, and as I understand it, that's a side effect of their sire's doing. And it's definitely said with this air of, I could say a lot more about that, but I'm not going to just now. And then she says, and because of that, and someone having found out, Amos has spent the last 80 or so years in a hole in the ground being fed on by a Ventru. So when Mordred says he might not be all there, and her tone is gentle as it can be, he's actually concerned for him. I'm not sure they ever met in their since his brother's embrace, but he's not as blasé about him as he suggests.
Yeah. And The look on Catherine's face certainly says, well, it's a big ol' oof. Because, like,
Mm,
she had 2 years.
yep. Oh, it
But
was more than 2. It
80?
was a while.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah.
fair. She had a few years with
Yes. Yes.
Ramses, but 80? Cool.
Yep.
Yeah, and she's going to nod, and she'll say, how much do you think I would startle him well, if I basically approached him and said, hey, I was also a blood doll, let's be friends?
She tilts her head. I can't say. I've never met him, so I don't know. But it's not exactly out of the norm for us to have an awareness of things we shouldn't. So maybe if you say it the right way, he'll play along. I suppose it depends on how much he wants to hide it. She shrugs again. All I know is, if you manage it, Deirdre will find you competent, and Mordred will actually have a reason to give a shit about you. And she's not saying that, like, they shouldn't give a shit about you to begin with. It's like, a matter of fact, that is the math that needs. Those are the equations to be completed in pursuing those ends with those two.
Yeah, and she's going to nod, and she'll say, is there anything I need to know about what is to come?
She looks at you long and hard. The city won't be anything like what you've experienced when we're done, Catherine. You won't be anything like the person you are now when we're done.
In her mind, Catherine is thinking, I need to make sure to store my books somewhere safe. But she ain't gonna say shit about that, because I don't think that's gonna reflect well on her. Uh, but that's her priority.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, she just slowly nods, and she'll say, to be fair there, the city doesn't have much to offer at this point anyway.
Mm, no.
Change can be a good thing.
And she gives you probably the most expressive look she has thus far. And it's a very deep, wicked smile. And she says, indeed.
I do have one question, well, a couple questions, I suppose, before I go to track down a fellow mentally unstable person.
Go ahead.
How long have you known that I existed?
She looks down a little bit like she had suspected this might come up. I felt when Astrid embraced you, so I suppose I've known as long as you've been a kindred. But Armand and Astrid were already long estranged, and I had no reason to seek her out. I never directly intended to. And then Armand, she pauses, like, kind of this moment of, I can't believe he did this. Well, when Astrid. What word would she fucking use there?
Disappeared?
Met her fate. That's what she's gonna say. When Astrid met her fate, he wanted to know what happened. and they had already suspected that Amos might have been in trouble somewhere in this area. So Armand came here. But she was gone. More or less. You seemed happy when you arrived. I didn't wish to intrude.
And she'll nod and she'll say, Ramses was the one that, well, he murdered Astrid's sister. And so she hurt him and then took me and then embraced me. And she pauses for a moment, just her nose wrinkling slightly, and she'll say, Astrid is the most kind but wicked person I've ever met, and I never knew who she was going to be, and so it became tiring. I just didn't want to handle the abuse, and so I left her.
She nods. Her condition was particularly complicated. I had hoped she would one day find a way to master it. I suppose that never happened.
The last I saw her, was it like the 1950s? Something like that?
Yeah, it was just before World War II. So it was 1939.
30, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The last I saw her was the cusp of the 1940s. I met up with her and her new lover,
No, they weren't lovers at the
Marcon.
time.
Oh,
They met for the first time that night, too. Marcon just also happened to be willing to go kick Nazi butt, so.
okay, fair. Yeah. Yeah. I met her with Marcon, and that was the
Marcon?
last. Yes, Marcon.
She
Wild.
pauses.
Bruja.
I know. Marcon.
She nods further. Like, that is what I said. Indeed. Not quite understanding the connection there.
I think you might be running into him again soon.
Why do you say that?
Call it intuition. In other words, Malkavian speech.
Malkavian bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she just slowly nods and she'll say, should I be afraid? Like, there's part of it that's like actually saying that, like, should I be afraid? But then there's also part of it that's just like, what's the worst that's going to happen at this rate?
And she's going to evenly say, I don't know.
Great. Yeah, she just slowly nods and she'll say, yep. And she just nods and she'll say, I will say, If he does do anything negative, I'm sure Emery will hear about it, and that's another problem for us. What do I tell him?
Emery?
Yes.
She's gonna press her lips together and say, "What do you think he'll accept? You were scared. He doesn't know what you were scared of." What can you tell him that he'll believe and not question you?
Sorry, I just had the idea of just. And she's gonna pause and she'll say, "Somehow I ran into a bunker and stabbed myself on a piece of driftwood."
And then she's going to tilt her head at you. I do suppose you would then have to then explain how exactly you got off said piece of driftwood.
Gravity.
Also, she's just gonna stare at you like she doesn't know if she should find that funny or not. She's gonna say, "I'll just leave those details. I'll leave those details up to you," in very much a "you do you, kid" tone.
Great.
But then she adds, "He's going to want to know why you frenzied."
What if he already knows?
She'll say, "Unless Carver told him, he won't. And if Carver did tell him, which you should, I suppose, find out first, maybe he went after Carver." She shrugs. "If he did, then you simply tell him the truth. Deirdre already promised to protect him for you. Which, by the way, you should consider yourself supremely lucky for. He was on the kill list." She wasn't joking when she said he would die if you fuck this up.
Yeah, and she grimaces. Like, just fucking. Yeah. This is the closest that she's probably seen her to looking almost heartbroken, even though it didn't actually happen. So, if he already knows, basically open season for recruitment?
She shakes her head. "No. You convince him to keep his mouth shut and to leave Carver alone. The rest of them, too. Tell them you don't have anything to do with them anymore. This has gone too far. But you don't want to see them hurt. He'll believe that. It's in your nature. It's not a criticism when she says it. It's very natural."
Yeah. And she'll nod and she'll say, "Thank you."
She nods. "You're welcome. By the way, how exactly do you want this Ramses to die?"
And, she's actually going to turn and look at the manacles on the wall. And then she's going to look to her and she'll say, "Tied up, starved, blood dry."
She's going to smile. "I can take care of that."
And she nods. And there's a slight tremble to her hands as she stands there, and she's gonna be able to tell, like, she hates violence. She's such a fucking flower, but there's such deep hatred for Ramses that she's willing to basically put that aside just to see this motherfucker suffer
Mm.
because of all the pain he put her through and put the other girls through.
Mm.
And her first husband. To add him in, too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yep. Yeah. And then she'll nod and she'll say, all right, time to go find a wayward whatever he is.
She nods about that. Apologies in advance. And you're gonna feel a stake go through your chest.
Yeah, buddy.
Lights out.
Saw that coming.
Yep.
See, this is where, like, she should basically take her to a bunker.
Yeah, yeah.
Have her laying on the ground, bloody stake, like, hanging on the wall.
Yep. That's actually literally what she's going to fucking do.
Oh my god, yes. I love it.
Yep. You are going to wake up near the waterfront somewhere on a covered pier, or like at the bottom of a pier. Whatever is closest to where you were, and said piece of wood, driftwood or not, probably not driftwood, probably more like a falling kind of broken piece of walkway
Mm-hmm.
will be conveniently located nearby.
Yeah, and she sits up and just sort of, like, looks around, looking to see if there's anyone around her as she wakes up finally.
And there is not. But it does seem to be awfully dark, and you might not be entirely sure how long you were down there, but given, even though it was early in the night, and how long it took you to recover from both of your episodes,
It's probably the next night.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. And so she. Yeah. She just sort of sits there for a moment, and I guess the question is, do we go? No, we go to. Would she go to Amos or would she go to Emery?
Well, I mean, I would imagine he'd go to Emery first, but we kind of have some stuff that's got to happen before that happens, and then this might get a bit dangerous if we wibbly wobbly timey wimey it.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm gonna pause here for the moment on the recording.